With Odyssey now 6 months in, 8 updates given on top for it. Well, at least what Frontier calls us updates. With the base game separate from the new DLC expansion. Perhaps the little Bobby the urchin on the street corner is asking, well, is it worth picking up the game? And then next to him, Sir McScrotumface stands and asks, is it worth returning after my absence? But before I give you the concrete answer, these videos are possible because of the fan support. Maybe a fan just like you. So head to my Patreon page down below or maybe join as YouTube member. It all really makes this sort of a coverage possible. Alrighty then, Elite Dangerous, is it worth playing today, this year, this moment? Well then let's examine what this game has to offer first. On the base game these days, not to make the game too frustrating to code and upkeep as Odyssey was about to be released, you also now have Horizon's expansion. Yes, they combined it with the base game. So no longer people with the cheapest access to the game will be bullied by the overbloated Horizon's engineered chads. Now it's back to the leveled ground where pretty much only the tryhard gankers will reach in and pull out your intestines through that smelly orifice. So yeah, fun times for the whole family. Seriously though, this move was not to benefit the players, but for the game to be easier to upkeep, which is all good with me too. The price too has remained about the same, $30 without discounts, and frankly discounts happen for Elite quite rather often, bringing it down to about $10 at most sales. So, is it worth it? Well, first let's go a bit deeper. Next then of course we have Odyssey release, offering players to finally spontaneously transmute your corporeal fetus RV on planets and stations that you land on. Finally, after these years and years and years and years and years, get it? 6 years since release, able to walk with those shoe rollers. You can even pick up a gun and shoot someone in the face, even kill them. Planet tech is also redone, so planets you once knew, none of them have remained the same. But at least now players can land on light atmosphere planets additionally, which makes up around 5% extra planets of the whole galaxy compared to Horizon's approximate 51%. These light atmosphere planets have a neat skybox effect, making them rather pretty. Well, at least for pictures and videos. And that's when you correctly frame them too. This expansion DLC also costs $40 on top of the base game. So, is it worth this price? Well, first we must dig deeper again. So then, the base game for anyone new. Elite Dangerous really is an experience that must be had. It's unique and for the sale price, frankly hard to argue it's worth of all the positives that it has. Now with Horizons added on top. Shit ton of systems to visit, pretty nice combat mechanics and decent AI to fight against, not to mention the players. Incredible level of customization of the ships and I think there was some kind of a story? Well, the game doesn't really tell you, as if that's some sort of a secret or whatnot else. But to answer the little Bobby's question of is it worth buying Elite Dangerous if you're new? Fuck yes! For me, it's one of those rare experiences, not only in just combat alone that must be had, but on top, if unlike me, you like other two types of gameplay, exploration and trading, well, the game takes care of your desires to a certain degree as well. Exploration really makes for an interesting experience, while trading, exists. Well, I like it, but it's just, well, dull. Anyways, Elite is grinding. After initial wow factor wears off and you try to actually accomplish anything, well, expect to be grinding this game harder than a drugged up sex-crazed lesbian and her equally appealing corner of a table. To this day, the base game's grinding aspect and money payouts have improved, but to a rather small degree, so unless you follow my money guides and other meta routes, well, yeah, expect it not to be fun. Now we need to turn to returning player questions. Has the game improved after all these years? And no doubt the question comes in the context of PvP, engineering, and of course its GIMP slave, the material collection. Oh, and story as well, I guess. So I guess we can start with the story. Has Elite Dangerous changed in a story-wise to be interesting to play again? No, it still does not have any sort of a story quest that you can replay regardless of the time period, and there is no guided campaign pain or anything like that. This game still is allergic to any kind of a curated experience. Then in PvP, in general it's the same. The crime and punishment system that's supposed to protect the players and punish the wrongdoers, or at the very least dissuade them from doing, for example, ganking left and right in high security systems, is just as anemic as medieval medical experiment patient on leech research. In fact, the game will still send you to the fucking jail just because you died and you only had fines on you, which basically are galactic equivalent of parking tickets. Well, what about the engineering then? Fuck me, where can I start? Okay, so you remember that big tirade analysis that I made about engineering as a whole? A 40-minute relentless dead horse beating? All the points I raised in that one? All the hypocrisies and bad designs I showcased? Even the fucking description errors? Nope, none. Absolutely none of that engineering has improved or changed. Although, well, it kinda has gotten worse. See, if most engineering upgrades were already more unbalanced than Francium, then how would you judge someone who comes up with the idea to make double engineered modules for fucking personal narrative? I shit you not, well, there aren't that many of them yet. Modules with 2 base upgrades can be exchanged for materials already, and that makes me consider calling Child Protective Services on Frontier for abusing, nay, literally beating the poor balance, senseless. So the power creep has gotten a little worse, but okay, what about the material? It's the same. You still go out there and mindlessly grind rocks and literally quit the game to farm high-grade materials in the most effective manner, and that's what Frontier calls the best gameplay out there, right? The grind in Elite has not changed at all, and it's still as horrific as it's ever been. Oh, and for you new players who stuck around for my monologue here, imagine credit grind, but 8 times worse. So if you are looking for a reason to return to Elite because all of a sudden, due to Odyssey or something, the grind has become better, no! So then that leaves us with Odyssey. Now, at this point, if you have not seen my quote-unquote review about this or anything else, well, let's then go on a fun little field trip. So the baseline for Elite Dangerous was the drought period before Odyssey announcement. It was here. Then, this was Elite Dangerous as the space legs were announced. This was Elite Dangerous on the Odyssey launch. And this was literally a day afterwards and since. Let's then also compare YouTube popularity of Elite and say its contemporaries, since we can, Star Citizen and No Man's Sky. This is Elite on Odyssey launch, and this is it now. This should tell you a little about what in the blazing anus pustules are happening, not only with the update itself, but the game as a whole. Right now, anyone looking at Elite will see not only player numbers the same as they were before the hype period, but actually lower, and notably so. And that's really bad. See, a simply bad DLC that fails to bring anything new would not have this sort of effect. It certainly has done something that went beyond just being bland, boring, or just bad. It actually did screw up the game in several ways that led people just simply leaving it far more. So, what the fuck happened? Well, then let's start with the release. Performance-wise itself, it was so bad that the DLC was not up to admitted levels that Frontier themselves would rate a recommended spec machine or minimal spec machines. To this day, after these 8 updates, my literal near one-to-one recommended spec machine is not running to the level they said it should be. But even if the performance was not a big problem and borderline misrepresentation, what content would you still get for those $40? First, all the planets would get a new, mandatory generation system that would erase all the cool and unique planets we've found thus far. Worse, the new system would be far less interesting and more boring than the old one. No deep canyons or mountains, like in Horizons. All that would not be even properly explained why it needed to be replaced in the first place, so I'll invent my own reason. It was there so that planets would support higher detail textures and more detailed meshes for walking. And yep, that's definitely worth erasing all planets for, right? All that we get is approximately 5% extra planets in the galaxy to walk on, with pretty skyboxes and more vegetation, which does look cool, but really does nothing. Second then is walking with your human body. You get to experience the first-person gameplay, which was almost like writing on the wall back in the day, but in reality the way they developed it, well, it kind of feels like tiny legs with wheels on them. Additionally, your spacesuit has such a low operational time outside of SRV or ship, and you can't synthesize anything and become self-sufficient like with SRV, so fuck you if you wanted to go further than few kilometers away from your ship, SRV, or settlement alone. Oh, and did I mention, arguably the most important thing, walking inside your ship is not a thing. It wasn't even considered as a gameplay part, according to some quotes from the mouthpieces of Frontier. This part truly saddens so many players, despite some hints dropping even as close as 2019 with the Crate trailer. Number 3 then would be also a facelift for the UI of the game, which was needed, but instead of bringing in quality of life alongside of it, it was exactly opposite and just as weird. In some cases, like outfitting is just far worse, and for Galaxy Map is just plain frustrating, leading many people questioning if this was designed by anyone who had actually played the game before working on this. Number 4 would be the first of the 2 gameplays you could do on legs, exploration. Well, if you could really call that a gameplay. It's worse than sitting in an SRV and scanning things, so by all intentions and purposes, I don't even count it towards the $40 mark, because there's really nothing. And number 5 is the other, more noticeably polished, in fact the most finished part of Odyssey, the FPS combat. But even that was royally, and with the queen on top, fucked! As an FPS player, I would have been your guy. I promise this would have been my bread and butter, as it is my niche. However, what they did was copy-paste vehicle-based combat, which is notably slower, methodical, and tanky, onto a fast-paced, reflexive FPS combat. A complete and utter failure, and to me, almost like a spit in the face. However, if that almost was, then number 6 certainly is basic molestation. The grind would be your main gameplay. And if you thought that the base game was bad, Horizons was horrible, then this Odyssey grind is indescribable. Now, unlike your SRV and ship that can collect materials until the limited inventory is full and you're forced to go and engineer something, you, additionally with the legs, had to deal with your suit having a very small inventory, which once full, you would need to go and store it back at the ship or SRV, which would turn your gameplay into countless hours of Benny Hill montages. The thing is, every gun and every suit needed upgrading in order to actually not suck for the combat. And even then the FPS combat would feel like grind due to the tankiness. And once you put an attachment on your, let's say, a gun, you could not remove it. Even a fucking scope. It's glued on there really well. And such things as customizations for guns is an alien concept for Frontier in the world where Crysis, Call of Duty, Apex, PUBG, Rainbow Six, Battlefield, and literally most other fucking FPS games exist. And pray tell, do you know how long it would take for you to speed grind this stuff to actually get one suit fully decked out? Well, I tested it. It's 30 fucking hours, and slightly less for the guns. Are you ready to enjoy your quality grind gameplay? And that's, generally speaking, about it on the $40 what you get. A very seemingly empty and barren, overpriced and most definitely cut down piece of shit that's barely grasping for air in the broken state because, oh, and here comes the best punchline. The fucking Frontier executives and leadership shoved this garbage out without the slightest hint of guilt or shame so that they could meet the company's end of the year deadline. Or at least I speculate, of course. And then, in an investor report, blamed this horrific release on connectivity issues. I shit you not, that's what they did. It's funny, for me as a creator, if Odyssey had been boring or even super average like I initially guessed, this video title would have been the first I would use. In fact, my fellow creator peers would do that as well. But no, instead, easily dying was more prudent. And after my tirade, some followed suit. However, here we are with Odyssey, and if you ask me, is it worth picking it up or returning to it? Fuck no! The performance has barely changed and it's still below their own fucking standards. As said, my recommended machine can't run this game according to their own goals that they set 6 months later. The content is so barren that not even an eye candy of ship interiors or fuck the jingling keys in front of a cat, known as new ships, aren't there. Nothing's there to warrant that price tag, or any price tag for that matter. No wonder people started leaving the whole game. It's so bad that it affects everything, and indeed it has. On top, due to this bullshit rush release, Odyssey would simply not run on consoles, and thus Horizons has to be separated from Odyssey, till their actually hard-working developers can actually manage to do the work they should have been allowed to do before releasing this mess. However, now due to executives being greedy, disconnected idiots, all this work and stress is brought into public's eye. Well done you fuckheads. So, simply, stay with Horizons. There's nothing in Odyssey worth checking out, and even if there is, well, maybe just watch a video instead. The result will be basically the same anyhow. If you're fresh to the space sim genre, yes, Elite still is an excellent experience, and gameplay at times too. However, once you've done your first beginner 200 fucking hours, the grind will be part of your daily routine with no real story or career mode to delight you while you do the garbage tasks, so that Frontier spreadsheets can be padded with empty player hours and they can rake in gullible people's monies by offering lazy microtransactions. So, in the end, is it worth playing Elite Dangerous this or the next year? Yes and no. For mindless fun, I would say certainly. Yet the looming shadow of shit is always there, and that's fucking sad as hell. And if this helped you or delighted you and gave you some kind of emotion, well, do consider becoming a patron in return or join as YouTube member. A buck a month does keep this Latvian fed and just as cynically fun. But as for now, I bid y'all good day, till we see Odyssey improve, I guess. Well, we'll see if ever.